What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Mill, if you like. So let's get into it. Before I get into the 49ers versus the Cowboys, as far as the 49ers offense versus the Cowboys defense, one of the things I want to touch on is kind of the sucky part of watching all these teams make deals at the trade deadline. I know the Cowboys don't have any singular player that's going to completely change the outlook of their defense. Um, but I would like to see them get some help, especially with some of these guys they're being moved for. I mean, you watch certain players go for a fifth round pick and a sixth round pick, and it's not even just that those players are defensive players. You can help your defense by having a better, more consistent offense. So, DeAndre Hopkins to the Kansas City Chiefs for, almost nothing. And, then you see Amari Cooper to the Buffalo Bills. You see Devontae Adams to the New York Jets. I mean, by all means, I'm not saying the Cowboys should have traded for one of those players, but what I am saying is we have an obvious need at running back. Like the Cowboys definitely should be looking at trading for a running back. It's not going to take much to get a decent one. And I just hope that they don't wait until the last possible minute and then trade for another like older guy, down roster on somebody's roster, and then try to convince us that that's the awesome move to put them over the top. It's going to be a real interesting week and a half here with the trade deadline and the game against the 49ers, things like that. There's going to be some interesting things that the Cowboys might need to do to save their season, if they're even interested in saving their season. I think what happens this weekend will go a long way to telling us what, and then if they lose to Atlanta, we'll see how this all shakes out. But just to get into it a little bit, the 49ers have a lot of injuries on offense, right? We're pretty sure Deebo Samuels is not going to play. We're certain that Brandon Ayuk is not going to play. Joanne Jennings probably isn't going to play. Christian McCaffrey isn't going to play. So the 49ers have a banged up offense. But lucky for them, I mean, they have Mason, and I don't know if you remember, but last year when the Cowboys played the 49ers, Mason actually had a long touchdown run. The Cowboys actually did a decent job of bottling up Christian McCaffrey, but Mason was the one that actually hit them the hardest and for the longest runs. And then the 49ers have these very nice, very well coordinated offensive schemes as far as running the ball. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of getting their offensive linemen out in space. They're not necessarily a power blow you off the ball type of running game. They're more like what we talked about earlier in the year, giving the Cowboys trouble against the Saints or the Detroit Lions, even though the Detroit Lions can straight up bully you as well. And the Baltimore Ravens, they did a little bit too, just kind of getting their offensive linemen out on the edges, right? Getting them out in space, getting them on the move, because your blocks don't necessarily have to be perfect. But they do have a player on their offensive line, and Trent Williams, that can be perfect. So you marry that with getting out on the move and getting out in space, and then you get a guy on the edges like Jordan Mason. It's setting up to be a long day. We know Trayvon Diggs isn't going to be a real physical tackler out there. I've been talking about the type of adjustments for weeks that the defense should make in order to make sure to take that decision out of his hands. But of course, nobody's doing that. So they did say that they had the across the hall during this bye week, and the offense went and talked to the defense and kind of looked at how they were getting scouted, and the defense went and took a look at the offense. But honestly, mentality and depth is something that even the across the hall can't make up for, right? So the Cowboys have to have the want to, right? They have to want to get out there and be physical and bring those ball carriers down. And I mentioned Trayvon Diggs, but there's other players who are out there, throwing out arm tackles or, I don't mind if you dive at a guy's legs if you bring him down to the ground, but there's a lot of guys diving at guys' legs and not getting them to the ground. Malik Hooker's a step slow. Sometimes you have Leafau, he's in position, he's making tackles. Sometimes Leafau's out of position. You have Mozzie Smith, he's been playing better this year, but he's still learning. So this is a game where Mozzie can't get turned. If you see Mozzie Smith's numbers a lot, yeah, it's probably going to be a bad day for the Cowboys. If you see him playing square, you're like, where's Mozzie on the line? That's probably a good thing for the Cowboys because the way the TV, is angled at you, if you see that that defensive lineman's numbers, that means he's gotten turned. Or that means when those guys were getting out in space and he went to go pursue, he didn't pursue square to the line of scrimmage. He turned and tried to run, and then they walled him off. So we're going to have to be very precise. I know everybody's going to say the 49ers are injured. This is the time you can get them. I mean, honestly, we have a lot of injuries too on the defense. So this is kind of two mash units, right? You got a very injured 49ers offense going against a very injured Dallas Cowboys defense. And if you want to take a look at it and you want to be brutally honest with yourself as a Cowboys fan, the Cowboys defense, even when it was fully healthy, there wasn't necessarily anything to write home about, right? I mean, they held a Giants team to, 15 points. They had held the Steelers, which is probably their best game of the season, to 17 points. I don't care what anybody tries to tell you about Justin Fields. I don't care that Russell Wilson put up some points the other night because he has to do that consistently throughout the season. Justin Fields was 4-2, and he was the Steelers' only offense. Now some of that is his doing, right, by his decision making, but he actually was passing the ball pretty well as well. So don't let these people all of a sudden tell you that Russell Wilson is the Pittsburgh Steelers savior. It was one game, and the Jets have been pretty this season as well. So that was probably the Cowboys' best defensive game, but then they followed it right up against Detroit and just got mollywopped. So I think a lot of my perception on our defense going against the 49ers offense in this game still has a lot to do with the ass kicking that we just received. And the 49ers actually still do have Kittle. So I do think they'll be able to do some things with Juszczyk and Kittle in the passing game, and then do some things with Juszczyk and Mason in the running game. The only thing that's going to be awesome for us is they don't really throw it to Mason as much. Cowboys tend to have a lot of trouble, especially this season, defending the screens out on the edge, right? And those offensive linemen get around you and it's over. But the bad part for the Cowboys is they will throw screens to Kittle. They will throw screens to Juszczyk. And Juszczyk and Kittle are going to be a load to bring down in the open field. So the Cowboys kind of have to make sure that, A, they're game planning in the passing game for some of those guys that are known to give the Cowboys hell. But B, also making sure that if they get a chance to bring down a Juszczyk, a Kittle, a Mason, when the opportunity presents itself, the play needs to stop there. This can't be one of those games where, okay, they did the screen to Juszczyk. Oh, the Cowboys diagnosed it right. Oh, man, Eric Kendricks overran it, and now there's an alleyway. Or, oh, man, Donovan Wilson came up and went at the guy to tackle him, but he didn't wrap up. So even though it was a hard hit, Juszczyk got 17 more yards after, he breaks the tackle from Donovan Wilson. So, the Cowboys need to make sure that when they're tackling these guys, that they get them right down as soon as the opportunity presents itself. This can't be one of those poor tackling games by our defense. Also, I would like to see Zimmer get up, since the 49ers don't have many receivers in this game, not their main core of weapons. I think they're going to have Ricky Pearsall. Shout outs to him for being able to get on the field after getting shot in the chest. I got nothing but respect for that guy, but I do want to see him fail. I'm just being real. So I hope the Cowboys and Mike Zimmer have them get up and press these receivers at the line of scrimmage. These receivers are young. They're inexperienced. They don't necessarily have that timing and chemistry with Brock Purdy. And I need the Cowboys to, instead of sitting back and letting those receivers get on them and letting the 49ers get their offense in a timing situation, the Cowboys need to make sure that they're pressing the receivers at the line of scrimmage, throwing off this timing. I know Brock Purdy can run the ball a little bit. I think the number is 17 first downs that he's rushed for, which, I mean, when you think of Brock Purdy, he has a lot of movement. He's able to move around in the pocket pretty well. He's pretty fleet of foot. He actually reminds me, in the movement style, he reminds me a lot of Tony Romo, actually, because he has good pocket awareness. It's not like when we played the Cleveland Browns, and even though Deshaun Watson is known as a quarterback who can, yes, well, at least he used to be able to sit back and throw that ball in the pocket, and he also used to be able to get out and create plays with his legs, either scrambling to throw or scrambling to hurt the defense. Brock Purdy, you don't think of him in that way necessarily, but Brock Purdy's actually, this year at least, has got quite a bit of movement and can give the Cowboys some trouble, sorry, as far as scrambling the ball and being able to keep drives alive with his feet. So getting up and pressing those receivers, not necessarily spying Brock Purdy, but someone like Overshown who's able to fly in the open field and make sure that he gets there for the tackle. I think that's going to be very useful for the Dallas Cowboys in this game. So they need to make sure that they're on their P's and Q's with tackling well. I hope they're practicing that this week. I actually hope they do some live tackling, even though in the NFL that's pretty much a lost art. That doesn't happen anymore. I would like to see at least some tackling drills, maybe on the dummies, man. Go back to the basic. Teach these guys how to wrap up. This is a game where the Cowboys need to be physical. This is the type of game, even though the 49ers, like I said, are very banged up on offense, like you can turn your season and prove something to yourself because no matter what, right? They're banged up on offense, but the 49ers have a mentality, right? We talked about mentality with the Cowboys as far as you can't change mentality, right? You can't scout mentality. You can go into the across the hall and you can be like, this is what we need you to do. We see that, when we're playing offense against you, Mr. Defensive Player, that when we get out on the edges, you're going to make a business decision, right? So you can tell him, don't make business decisions. But when that game is going on and he sees that running back coming at him and he's like, bro, I don't want that. I don't want to throw my shoulder in here. I don't want to throw my body in here. You know what I'm saying? That needs to be something that the player has to willingly make a decision to do something that he doesn't normally do. So we need the Cowboys to be as physical as they were against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to watch this game, and I want to come into this game, and I want to watch it and look at it and go, these boys is hitting. You know what I'm saying? Because the 49ers on offense, they're going to have a mentality, and they think you are already sitting there, kind of being a little prissy there and thinking that, you know what, I can ankle tackle this guy or I can throw an arm out there and kind of just hope he falls to the ground, right? So the 49ers are already expecting that. If I see it on tape, they see it on tape. And unlike the Cowboys, who see things on tape but don't necessarily do things to take advantage of what they see on tape, the 49ers are a really good team. A team that's been to multiple NFC championship games in the last 6 years. A team that's been to the Super Bowl in the last 6 years. So this is that type of team who's like, hey, I see something on tape. We're gonna test that, right? And every single team for the rest of the season is gonna test the Cowboys' run defense. They're gonna test the Cowboys tackling. They're going to test the Cowboys physicality and see if they want to do that for 4 quarters, right? So the Cowboys, even if they start off the game early and they're doing their thing, they need to make sure that for the whole game that they're there for the physical aspect of it. We're not going to have Micah Parsons probably this game. So that's going to be another game that he misses most likely. And I need to see that other players on the Cowboys have the mentality. Michael Parsons can be physical, and whenever he gets a chance, he is. I know a lot of times he's hunting sacks, so he finds himself out of position a lot. But the man's still a great player. So, I need the Cowboys defense as a whole to make sure that they come to play and then let the chips fall where they may. If you are physical and you are taking it to the 49ers and making them feel you every time you hit them, every time they carry that ball, even if they get a first down, even if it's 7 or 8 yards, but you make sure that they feel you, as the game goes on, maybe some of those hits start to wear on them a little bit. I'm asking the Cowboys to do something that's not in their nature, right? Because the Cowboys are a finesse defense, just like they're a finesse offense. And I'd like to see some of that change. I don't know if that's going to change just from a bye week, but hey, we'll see. And some of the other things that I'm actually looking for, I hope DeMarvion Overshown is out there being his normal playmaking self. He has a chance to have a big game this week. He's one of those players that's hard to block. It's been 6 weeks. He's got a bye week. He's coming off an ACL. So I actually think from this point on in the season, this is actually when we're going to see a better DeMarvion Overshown, because he should be past that injury time now. Like this is the time where it's like, okay, I got to play all these weeks, and now I got a week off. Now I'm ready. Now I'm physically back to 100% and able to show all the things that I'm capable of doing. So I'm really hopeful, but I am also skeptical, because the Cowboys, I'm one of those fans that I'm like, you got to show me, man. I can't just give you the credit before you show me. You got to show me. You got to show me now. The urgency is now. The time is now. They're 3-3. They have a tough slate coming up, and it starts with the 49ers, and the 49ers are the Cowboys' boogeyman. They're his Baba Yaga. They're his John Wick. So we need to defeat our boogeyman. If we're going to get anywhere that we need to go, and I know I've only been doing this podcast this year, but my motto for the last few years is, if the Cowboys are going to get where they need to go, right? Which, if you're a fan like me, where they need to go, the mother effing Super Bowl. That's where they need to go, or at least the championship game. If they're going to get there, they have to exercise all these demons. And one of their demons is the San Francisco 49ers. So it has to happen. It has to happen, and it has to happen now. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter at JMillerIYL. That's JMiller if you like. You can also hit me up in the comments below if there's anything you want me to cover, or if you have any questions. You can also submit questions via email at knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. Again, knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. You can also submit it at knockersonthebottom@gmail.com. I'll take them there. I'll take them on Twitter. I'll take them in the comments below. Throw it into a mailbag and make it a formal segment. But I love you guys. If you like the show, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so that you know when I'm coming on. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm your host, J Mill. J Mill if you like. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.